Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. A big start to the week in the Bitcoin mining sector with major announcements out from Bit Digital and Riot in relation to some hiring and the Bitfarms situation. Before we get into it, take a second, hit the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below if you're currently holding any of these companies and what you thought about today's headlines. With that being said, let's get into today's podcast. Okay, guys, here we go. Monday morning, we're back in our respective hometowns, Anthony, after a long few weeks of travel, obviously culminating with Bitcoin Las Vegas convention last week. A great time, but back to work here. First thing we wanted to discuss, Bitcoin price, a little bit of weakness over the weekend. We'll talk about why that is in a second. Currently in the $104,000 range. If you zoom out to a 12-month view here, Anthony, we always like to take a step back. You can see doing tremendously well for the year, still up over 50%, but it definitely appears we're in that, I guess, third level of base building here.
Yeah, we've been in this range for quite a while now, and it feels like it's holding that. There's no again, not too much bad news. We'll cover a bit of bad news that came out with the weekend, but generally, 96% of all the information coming out is very positive about Bitcoin. We've just come from a conference where 35,000 people turned up. The biggest attendance at a Bitcoin conference. And bear in mind, it wasn't too many years ago when these conferences started. It was just a handful of people turning up. So it's really come on leaps and bounds. And it's great to be part of it. It's great to be there. It's great to meet a lot of people in the space, and also a lot of people that we talk about on a daily basis. So really positive. But yeah, Bitcoin price just doing what Bitcoin does. And holding that range. So we'll monitor it as it goes forward.
Yeah, we certainly will. We're now above $100,000 US for the longest duration ever in history. So you can see pretty clearly on here, we're in that $60,000 range, then up into the 90s, now up above 100. We'll see where we go from here. Now, you mentioned a little bit of bad news, Anthony. End of May here, so either the 30th or 31st, depending what time zone you're in, China has now come out with a full ban on, seems to be everything related to crypto. We talked about the ban on mining in the last cycle. That obviously had big implications on global hash rate and on Bitcoin price, essentially cutting that cycle rally short. Now they've come out and said they're also including crypto holding for individuals in the country as well.
Yeah, and back in 2021, they announced the ban on mining, and we saw the global hash rate drop by 60% literally overnight. And actually, that wasn't even all the mining stopping. There was still illegal mining carrying on for a number of years after that. And this update coming out now is obviously aimed at the ownership of assets such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, or the other 19,998 shitcoins out there. But this is really, also having to mention mining again. So maybe there are still people mining in China. We were under the impression they were sort of taking a bit more of a favorable view of Bitcoin, and we'd heard that China and Russia both had a couple of 100,000 coins. And bear in mind, when you think about trading with different nations, Bitcoin would be a good asset or a good use of currency to trade, because you can trade it through pretty much anywhere at the moment, whereas you can't maybe trade with the Chinese yuan or the Russian ruble.
Yeah, you definitely can't. We've heard China talk about the CBDC or central bank digital currency prior, maybe another step in that direction, Anthony. But as you say, moving in stark contrast to really the tidal wave of positive adoption we're seeing around the world. Now, speaking of Russia as well, they're going the opposite direction. They are taking advantage of Bitcoin and crypto for some of those international payments and settlements. They've now come out, their largest bank, stating they're going to look into Bitcoin and crypto-backed bonds. So Bit bonds, which is ironically exactly what we heard down in Vegas from the mayor of New York City, where you were getting your photo with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yeah, again, it's it might be Russia, but it's still a positive news story in the Bitcoin space there. And issuing Bitcoin and crypto bonds will only increase the adoption of Bitcoin, and that's what we're all out there to do. We're all part of the education program. Everyone works in the same direction. There's no one working against each other. So this is another news story to help the adoption.
It certainly is. And as you can see in the article from Matt Siegel, he posted this morning, looks like June 4th is when the implementation of those platforms are going to come into play in Russia. So great to see across the world that adoption. Another headline that caught my attention over the weekend, Anthony, in Poland here, again, electing a pro Bitcoin presidential candidate into the running.
Absolutely. Yeah, and actually, you shouldn't underestimate, a lot of the Eastern European countries are very tech savvy countries. A lot of skill sets in those countries. It doesn't surprise me that there are a lot of, pro Bitcoiners in Eastern Europe. If you want any sort of like web design or real tech solutions, a lot of countries out there, Estonia. Serbia have real tech, and Poland being in Eastern Europe will also attract a lot of attention there. Bear in mind, just thinking about the amount of Ukrainian people that have moved into Poland, giving them more opportunity to develop skill sets. So that's a really good piece of news. And we also have the news from Texas as well. With the fact that they've already voted favorably for the reserve bill, and now it's going to the governor for signing. We know he's another proactive member. So this again, it's just positive news on a daily basis.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the Texas governor indicating he will sign that bill into legislation or law. So exciting there, Anthony. We did some research. I think around 5% allocation is what this bill will enable. If you look at Texas overall GDP compared to other countries around the world, about eighth in size. I know you did some of the number crunching there. What does that mean in terms of annual Bitcoin purchase from Texas state alone if they were to use that full 5%?
Yeah, so if you look at what the legislature approved recently, they approved a 2-year spending plan of about just under $340 billion. So that's for 2 years. If you take 5% of 1 year, that's between 8.5 and 9 billion. If you put that into Bitcoin, that's over 80,000 Bitcoin potentially per year that could be invested. So that's a staggering amount there. If they were to do that, there's not many companies or institutions that would have that level of Bitcoin in the balance sheet. But that's up to 5%. They're not saying every state's going to go maximum, but Texas is very, very pro. And if you think about how much of the global hash rate is actually mined in Texas, it's a significant amount, maybe even sort of 20-25% of the global hash rate mined in one state, in the world there. So that's how proactive Texas is. And now that there's even data centers coming online there, they've got their own power system outside of the rest of the US there. So do things slightly differently, but this is a really good news story today, and wait to see that signature and confirmation, maybe in the next few days.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Now, we're seeing developments on the political front. We're also seeing them on the corporate front, Anthony. HODL 15 has had to expand his table yet again. So we're now seeing the top 100 companies that hold Bitcoin on their corporate treasury or balance sheet. We'll talk about strategy up top. You can see an up arrow beside them, but a couple of companies from your neck of the woods making a debut on the list here as well.
Yeah, there's a few from the UK, not as many as I thought there would be, but bear in mind the government in the UK has been very bearish on Bitcoin to the extent where even some of the banks won't let you transfer to an exchange to buy crypto. We're still in sort of like the dark ages over here. You can get to some banks that will do that, but there are some banks that won't. And even when I set up, the company and tried to get a bank account, the first bank I went to said no because it was related to Bitcoin. So they weren't prepared to give me an account. So the second one did. So fortunately, I've been able to use that over the last 18 months. But one interesting story that came out is a small company, the Smarter Web company, which is a UK-based company, and literally a few months ago, this company was valued at something ridiculously low, maybe £50,000. What they did was they raised some capital. And they're on the Aquis exchange, which is one of the smaller exchanges in the UK. They raised some capital and they bought Bitcoin with it, and immediately the share price started to rally. More people buying the shares. So, in the space of a few months, that share price has increased significantly. I think it's increased 30 to 40 x. So, and the valuation of the company now isn't £50,000 anymore. It's £175 million. They do have 83 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So that's around about probably between 8.6 million pound. Oh, sorry, $8.6 million. But obviously, it's that sort of premium that they've been given for doing this in the same way sort of strategy has been given a premium. Well, but that's a significant premium because there's not a lot else in the company other than the fact they've got Bitcoin. So significantly valued higher than the Bitcoin holdings. How long will that stay in place?
Yeah, no kidding. We were fortunate to run into Dylan LeClaire down in Las Vegas last week, Anthony. Metaplanet as well, getting a very large premium or NAV premium to the Bitcoin that they hold. It appears the first company within each country to do this strategy really gets that first mover advantage. And as you said, for some people in the UK, very difficult to access exposure to Bitcoin. So perhaps doing that through some of these publicly traded companies. But great to see them on the list.
And yeah, if you look at Metaplanet's total Bitcoin now, for an Asian company to hold 8,888, that in itself is a good luck symbol because the number eight in most of the Asian companies is a very lucky number. So I think that purchase they just made to get that number was a strategic decision to do that and achieve that number there, albeit be probably for a short space of time. But that maybe give the company a bit more luck as we go through.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the next move from here? Do you hold at the eights or do you make a very large purchase to add an eight onto the back end of that? We'll see. Michael Saylor continuing to buy as well, Anthony. He came out with one of the cryptic orange tweets last night. Not a huge purchase in the sense of strategy, but interesting they're starting to use some of these other funds to finance the purchase of the Bitcoin.
Yeah, they have sort of like three pots to use from there, and they've used the other two, the strike pots there for this benefit. They have a significant amount of shares through offerings that they can utilize, and he's made it very clear that at the right price, he'll sell more shares and build that Bitcoin balance sheet position and again achieve that Bitcoin yield. And if you look at where it is now year to date, he's achieved a Bitcoin yield of 16.9%, and they're hodling nearly 581,000 Bitcoin. So it's a significant amount of Bitcoin to hold. He's aiming for 5% of all Bitcoin there. He's already halfway achieving that figure, and no one will doubt him actually getting there in the end. So yeah, another purchase of Michael. This is becoming a weekly news update. Really, we see so many updates now. It's not having the same effect when people are listening to this, but he is buying on a regular basis. So good for him, and good for some of those other companies on the table there, showing the little green arrows up to show that they're buying. Not so many selling, which is a good sign. So again, it's just that positive rollout of consistent news that we're looking forward to.
It really is that snowball effect we've referred to, and it is funny, human nature. Now we're thinking the weekly $75 million Bitcoin buy is no big deal. So interesting how that works. Now the miners had a good start to the week here as well. Interestingly enough, Anthony, no production result or report from Bitfarms on the first day of the month here. We'll let this one slide. We know the team was down in Vegas. They were doing a management summit after that. However, Digital did come out of the gate here Monday morning with a major announcement talking about a 1 million square foot industrial purchase to really facilitate the next step of this AI development.
Yeah, so another announcement in the AI section of their business there. Don't forget they are a Bitcoin miner as well. Although the Bitcoin mining revenues now we've seen in the last couple of quarters has fallen shorter than the HPC revenues, which are really on the rise. And this is a big announcement. You know, they've announced a 1 billion AI data center campus in North Carolina. They've acquired a 96-acre industrial property in Madison, North Carolina, which is, like you say, approximately 1 million square feet. And the company intends to retrofit this facility into its flagship AI data center, and it'll be known as the facility. It benefits from immediate power, has a capacity with Duke Energy for 99 megawatts. 24 of that's going to be delivered around about September the 1st. And WhiteFiber, which is the name of the subsidiary of Bit Digital that deals with all their HPC and AI business, anticipates completing the initial phase of development and bringing the data center online by the end of this year. And they've carried out a feasibility study which indicates that they can expand up to 200 megawatts. This is a sizable amount then. If you turn around and say, well, maybe 50, 60 megawatts of that is going to be ancillary power, you know, 140, 150 megawatts of HPC power. The largest data center in Europe is the Meta data center in Sweden, which is 150 megawatts. When we talk about Bitcoin mining and some of the facilities are, 300, 400, 500, 700, even 1 gigawatt sites. Some of these HPC sites, the number doesn't have to be as big, and they are massive. So that Meta site there in Sweden, the biggest in Europe, 150, this is going to be on a par with that in terms of power capacity and size there. Located in North Carolina, it's strategically situated. It's 100 miles away from Charlotte, Raleigh, Winston-Salem and Greensboro. I've actually flown into Raleigh on the way to Nashville, so I've been to that particular area, albeit it was only for about an hour and a half while I was changing planes and having a nice chat with Max Kaiser and his wife. And it's 13 miles from the Virginia border. There's a lot of, the region itself already hosts a number of hyperscalers, and it's conducive to the AI inference workloads. And we're hearing more about that from these companies now wanting to take up HPC, and with the Bitcoin miners having this immense amount of power available, it's no shock that they're moving into that space, readily offering their power to deliver this new business line. WhiteFiber is currently negotiating with multiple potential tenants and has already signed a non-binding letter of intent. So maybe there's another announcement due to come out there. In terms of the area, it's going to create about 60 jobs. And that's already seen as a significant boost to the region. And the investment required is already projected to be over $1 billion. So hopefully we'll get Sam on the podcast, give us a bit more colour as to how that investment's going to be raised. Is that going to be all down to Bit Digital, or is that going to be the potential tenant? Is this a co-location site? Is this going to be another one of their tier 3 facilities? It suggests the size of it is probably going to be a co-location site. They've got some tier 3 facilities already, which we've talked about before, and Sam's gone through on the podcast before and put a bit more colour on those. So we'll hopefully get Sam on this week, get him to go through this update in a bit more detail, to give you guys there doing your due diligence that little bit more information before you decide to make the next steps.
Yeah, and just 2 additional points there, Anthony. $45 million was the purchase price, cash on hand used to finance that. And Sam gave a specific quote here stating, securing this site is a meaningful step in scaling our AI infrastructure platform. The location, size, and power profile make it a rare asset, which we believe will be foundational to meet accelerating demand for AI customers and pursue long-term value creation for shareholders. We acted decisively to secure what we believe to be a cornerstone asset for the company. So looking forward to getting Sam's remarks on that one. And as you say, could be more to come as they start to talk about clients as well. Now, the other company we ran into actually down in Vegas, Anthony, they were speaking a lot about bolstering AI HPC talent within their organization. So obviously securing the land, the power is one side of the coin. Having the people or staff that can actually execute on that vision is another. So they came out with a big announcement today in terms of the personnel front, adding one of these key experts to the team internally.
Yeah, so Riot Platforms have announced the hiring of Jonathan Gibbs as their Chief Data Center Officer to lead their data center platform. Now we know that they've recently done an about turn and are now fully focused on utilizing that 600 megawatts available at their Corsicana site towards HPC and AI. And so hiring the team, and Jonathan is another member of this team to deliver that business model is obviously a positive step forward. Riot, seem to be very positive about the opportunities available there. It has been the last 6 months we have seen Jason, talk more focus on delivering this type of business now, and we've seen the fact that a number of miners already got some deals. Right, could be one of the next ones to announce a deal there, but they've got a great site which ticks all the boxes in terms of having the power. 600 megawatts. I mean, we talked about the last site there, 200 megawatts. This is 3 times bigger than that. So this is like 3 or 4 times bigger than the Meta site in Sweden. So this is an enormous amount. And they have other sites as well that Riot could use. They could also utilize power at the Rockdale facility because they're not utilizing all the power available. That's a 700 megawatt site. They're probably using maybe just over half the amount of power there. So again, that brings in more power. They've also got sites in Kentucky, which they can also utilize. Again, if it meets all the criteria, so potential Riot, I saw this at the actual conference, having up to like 2 gigawatts of power available, and listen to what Dan Roberts indicated, and also with Ben Gagnon talking about, the uncertainty in Bitcoin mining. Some of these companies could really pivot wholly into the HPC business, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see some of these established Bitcoin miners, if they land that first deal and there's potential to go forward, could then start switching strategy really quickly and utilizing the power available that they were using for mining to deliver HPC, which we know currently delivers really, really good margins. And at the Bitcoin price we're seeing at the moment, we've talked about it today, 104,000. There's not many miners who really could make any meaningful profits at that level. It needs to be significantly higher. And if you go back a year ago, you remember Sam Tabar mentioning, where he thought the Bitcoin price would need to be before he decided to focus back on that business there. And that was a year ago before all the difficulty increases, which has effectively been another halving. So he was talking about 135,000. I bet if we asked him again, that number's going to be significantly higher than 135,000 before he starts waking up at night thinking, I'm missing out on Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, most definitely. I was going to say the same thing. And interesting, we started out as Bitcoin mining analysts here, Anthony. We may end our journey as data center analysts, depending how these companies
All power.
continue. All power, anything to do with mining power. Hey, another update from Riot as well in relation to their holdings of Bitfarms.
Yeah, this came out last week, and basically it's an announcement. It's a Form 144 to the SEC, basically saying that they have obviously a significant amount of shares of Bitfarms. And if you remember going back over the last year or so, they've been increasing that position in Bitfarms. They were looking to maybe have a merger with the company there that didn't happen. They decided to have a sort of a standstill for a few years. Well, it looks like now Riot are saying to the market, they have this number of shares, and they're letting the market know that they could sell shares, at a given moment. Now, if they sell significant chunks of shares, they're going to have to tell the market that their position as one of the largest investors in Bitfarms is going to change. And there'll be a lot of people out there going, well, this is just going to be bad for, not only Bitfarms and the fact that, there'll be a lot of shares in the market, but also for Riot, in fact, that the share price is significantly below what they pay for. And I think if you remember going back to when they purchased some of these shares, there was an average price over $2. I think it might have been close to $2.30. So at today's price, that's a significant loss. But remember, in the first quarter of this year, so Riot Platforms' last earnings update, they did highlight they have to mark the value of these companies on the balance sheet. And so they had to report the loss as it was at the end of March. And so the share price not massively different from where it is there. It wouldn't mean a massive impact on their quarter two if they were to start selling shares now till the end of June. It would probably be selling shares close to what they were valued at the end of Q1, so there wouldn't be another big loss in there. I think it'd be certainly. I think the price today is a little bit lower than 31st. I'd have to check there, but it wouldn't be as big as the loss they actually put into their accounts that quarter, because the share price from year to date for all the miners, I had a look this morning, so the average share price is still down 31% as at the opening today from the beginning of the year. So, Bitcoin has been, we've talked about Bitcoin in that sort of nice range over 100,000. Bitcoin mining shares have nowhere near reacted in the same way. That the majority, in fact, all the shares are down, with the exception of one. And we've talked about Gryphon Mining, with the potential merger going through there with American Bitcoin company. That share price is giving the company quite a significant market capitalization. And bear in mind, Gryphon's only got a 2% stake in that company, so that might still have some way to come down to meet that requirement there. But Riot have got the ability to sell shares. Bitfarms will be wondering what's going to happen next, because obviously from their point of view, they don't want any shareholders selling shares and the company putting more shares on the market. They're obviously trying to grow the share price and grow it significantly, so it gives them an opportunity to raise more capital to sort of fit out some of these great HPC sites that they've uncovered in Pennsylvania with the purchase of Stronghold Mining. So Panther Creek was one of the ones that gets mentioned a lot of the time there, and they've got other sites available. Bryce, me and you were able to have a VAR of one of their sites, which was really, really a really good experience to have.
Yeah, it certainly was. You can see us suiting up with Ben there. And interesting you bring up the fact, Anthony, that most of that loss in the Bitfarms share for Riot already accounted for. So interesting angle to look at there. You mentioned the miner prices, Anthony. We'll take a quick look at the group now. We're a couple hours into trading, a bit of a mixed bag. I'd say probably leaning more green than red right now. Holding up relatively well. I thought maybe we'd have a red day in light of the Bitcoin pullback over the weekend, but miners holding up relatively well here.
Yeah, I'd say it's difficult to predict with the miners. The correlation with Bitcoin's not been as clear for the last sort of 3 or 4 months as we'd expect it to be. Any downside, we saw literally all the miners red at market open, but there's been a little bit recovered there. CIFR up 5%, right, up 4%, maybe on the news of that hiring there, because obviously, you're hiring key people for key positions. Maybe there's something in the works that's happening, and we'll get some more information from Jason and the team in the near future. IREN also up 3%. Bit Digital up as well. Some good news from them today. And, a couple of shares down. Gryphon down 10%. Well, we talked about the market cap there. It's showing 78 million at the moment. I mean, that would likely give American Bitcoin Mining Company a market cap of probably close to 4 billion. And that would put them just behind Mara in terms of size. And I'm not sure that American Bitcoin have got the level of hash rate that Mara have. So even though they'll have a lot of new machines in there, they won't have anywhere near that. I think they're aiming for close to about 20 exahash. Marathon have got, over 57 exahash. And there's two other miners, IREN and CleanSpark, also well above 40 exahash now, on the way to 50 by the end of this month. Yes, we're in June now, so only 28 days before those two companies announce what they are at the end of the month, and we expect both of them to achieve that hash rate to 50. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this ends up with Gryphon Mining. But for the short term, people that manage to jump into that share price, good luck. But it looks to me like it's not going to be one that stays at the level it is for too long, because it doesn't give the valuation of the overall company as one would expect.
Yeah, a little bit lofty or frothy there, Anthony. Now, speaking of June, we wanted to give a month-end snapshot for Miner Madness 3.0 as well. So this is as of close on May 30th here, you guys. You can see Agrippa up top of the analyst leaderboard. I'm in the rear here, Anthony, last place, so we'll have to do some work this month. I've got Bitfarms, Riot, and CleanSpark, so hopefully we get some movement in those three names. You can see yours still in the top 5, which is great. And if we pivot over to the regular leaderboard, again, green across the screen here with all of the contenders, at least on the main page here in the green.
Yeah, there's been some good numbers through there, and IREN's had a good run, as has Core Scientific, and Wulf's had a good run as well. So you can see that those are the main ones there. Soluna and Gryphon Mining's played. As I said, there's 3 people investing in Gryphon Mining, and all they're in the top 3 positions there. That gain, if you remember, a few weeks ago was over 1,000%. So that's come down a little bit, and it'll come down further as we get closer to that merger deal, and the price will be known then. But yeah, it's showing that this competition, the third competition, looks like we're in a good position there. But bear in mind, in the first competition of this year, the Mining Madness 2.0. We didn't have anyone in positive territory, so it's good to see a turnaround there. And be interested to see how many of these people in the competition actually invested in their stocks there. Good overall position at the moment for everyone.
Certainly is. So with that being said, you guys, that concludes today's podcast. Let us know what you think about the news, both on the Bit Digital front and the Riot Bitfarms saga that continues. Leave a comment in the section below, hit the like button, feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.